Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Jack Lundin, who's the President, Chief Executive Officer and Director of Bluestone Resources, a natural resources company based on advancing the permitted high-grade Cerro Blanco gold project located in southeastern Guatemala, and the Mito geothermal project, which is an advanced stage renewable energy project licensed to produce up to 50 megawatts of power. Jack is part of the Lundin family and Lundin Group of companies who are renowned in the mining industry. Apart from being the CEO of Bluestone, Jack holds a number of board positions and is on the podcast today to give us an overview of Bluestone Resources and also tell us a little bit more about the Lundin Group of companies. So that's welcome Jack to the podcast. How are you doing, Jack?
I'm good. Thanks for that introduction and thanks for having me. How are you today?
I'm good. It's obviously probably only about a week and a half to Christmas, and I think this is probably my last podcast before the Christmas period. So, and I know you've been really busy, so really appreciate you taking up this time. So, as these podcasts always, how they always start off, I just wanted to give us, for those that don't actually know you, which a majority of people do, but people that may have not listened to the podcast before, or even who may be outside of Canada, maybe in Europe, Australia, Africa, wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and obviously your background.
Yeah, I'd happily do so. And hopefully we finish your year of podcasts, and this can be the saving the best for last. But my name is Jack Lundin, and as you already gave the introduction, I'm the CEO of Bluestone Resources. We've got a very exciting project in southern Guatemala, and I've been working with this company for just about 2 years now, advancing the project in Guatemala. I am third generation in the natural resource business, so I've kind of grown up and been born into this line of work. So it's a very exciting industry to be a part of, and I'm very fortunate to be able to work alongside my brothers and my cousins, and we're really excited about the future of the natural resource sector. I grew up in Vancouver, BC, and I did my studies in the US, and then I've worked in several different countries around the world, from exploration to development to operations. And prior to actually working with Bluestone in Guatemala, I was working with Lundin Gold on the development of Fruta del Norte in southern Ecuador. So been working in Latin America now for about 5 or 6 years. And prior to that, I was actually working on the oil side in Norway, doing exploration and production work on the Norwegian continental shelf with Lundin Energy, and during that time it was called Lundin Petroleum. So most of my experience has been within the group of companies, and therefore I'm really excited about having the responsibility to advance this company that I'm working with now, and also working with the other group of companies in the Lundin Group to really look at improving our standards and how creating awareness in the industry, because natural resources are required to advance society, and we need to get better at looking at sustainable resource development and including the communities in the host nations where we have our projects. So that's kind of a high-level summary of my experience and my ambitions here in this industry.
Yeah. Can you sort of give us an overview of the Lundin Group of companies, and obviously the history of the family within the natural resources industry? Obviously, a lot of our Canadian listeners will know a lot about obviously your history and your family, but those that are not outside of Canada, I just wondered if you can just run us through, I suppose, the history of the Lundin family, and then obviously the Lundin Group of companies.
Certainly. So as I mentioned, I'm the third generation in this business. My grandfather Adolf Lundin started out in the industry close to 50 years ago. He was born in Sweden and educated in Sweden, and then moved with his family and my dad, my uncle, and my aunts to Switzerland, and that's where he really started his career in the natural resource sector. They traveled a lot growing up, and he was always more fascinated on the oil and gas side of the business. And so he worked with bigger companies like Shell, and then decided that because he was such an entrepreneurial spirited individual and had this vision to grow and create value for shareholders in the natural resource sector, he went out on his own and decided to kind of make smaller investments and try and look at always finding that big score, those big resources. Didn't matter kind of where the prospects were located around the world. The geography was not a hindrance. It was always where the opportunity went, and that was kind of the vision that he had, always looking at finding big resources and advancing those so that you could create wealth, not just for individuals and shareholders, but also for the host nation. And so from that, he was very adventurous and visionary, and he got my dad and uncle into the business, and they started doing similar things, working on both oil and gas and the mining side in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America. And from there, I mean, we've had a lot of successes over the years of just going where maybe other individuals or companies were deterred because of different reasons. But we always thought that the approach that we take is that we move to an area where there's an opportunity, we engage with the local stakeholders, the local leaders, we look at what the opportunities and the challenges are, and we create a partnership and try and drive sustainable resource and economic development in those regions. And that's how you create value and opportunities for shareholders and stakeholders, all stakeholders. So over the years, the businesses have changed, and we've gone from really looking at exploration plays to now, because of the reputation and the financial strength that we have, we can not just look at exploration, but look at development and operations. And so over the last kind of 15 to 20 years, we've been looking at taking projects from one phase and moving them through the entire life cycle of mining projects. So exploration to development to operation to closure. We work in all of those different phases of the natural resource sector. And that's where me and my brothers now are working as young up and coming mining executives to continue that legacy in finding opportunities in development and in operations of natural resources around the world.
I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more, obviously, about Bluestone Resources, obviously being the CEO, and obviously it's your asset that you're looking to develop. So just wondering if you give us an overview of the company.
Right. So Bluestone Resources is a single asset junior mining company. We're a Canadian listed company, and we have our full focus is in southern Guatemala. We have two projects there. One is a high grade gold and silver project called Cerro Blanco, and the other is a renewable energy, a geothermal project called the Mita Geothermal project. And we're looking at advancing those in parallel. Our primary focus at the moment is working towards a feasibility study for an open pit concept on the Cerro Blanco project, which is a very robust project. It's the geology is very unique in that it has near surface mineralization, and it's very amenable to very low risk and low operating cost open pit or surface mining methods. So we're working there with the nation of Guatemala and the local stakeholders to establish a good working relationship, but also building the capacity in order to develop out this resource, right? There's a lot that goes into planning for sustainable mine development. So we're in the phase of planning. We're working on training, education, of course, project financing and engineering. And we just submitted 2 weeks ago our amendment to our environmental application so that it reflects kind of the bigger scale and the change in mining method. Because when I took over 2 years ago, this project was looked at as a smaller scale underground mining method, but because the understanding of the geology of this project is actually that it's the deposit goes to surface, it's much more amenable to surface mining methods. It's much less risky as well. So we can focus more on local employment and local hiring, all while creating more economic benefits from this resource. So we're very excited about that. We've had a very busy 2021, and we're looking at having a even busier and more productive 2022 as we move towards the development phase towards the end of next year, and ultimately targeting first gold production by the end of 2024.
I just want, obviously you probably covered a little bit of this, but I just wondered if you can give us an update on the projects. And obviously you've been with the company for a few years now, how the company's progressed with those projects to sort of current day.
Yeah, so when I joined in January 2020 to Bluestone, I was coming from Fruta del Norte, and we had just completed the development of that project in southern Ecuador. So I was able to bring some of the key members of the project team over with me, and we were able to begin to study and analyze the Cerro Blanco project and the Mita geothermal project as well, which is in the adjacent concession. And what we found is that this project is much more amenable, as I mentioned, to surface mining methods rather than being contemplated as an underground. So we did a preliminary economic assessment on this newer development, and the results of that showed that it was much more robust and much less technically challenging to develop in a surface operation. So now what we've been doing in the year 2021 is advancing on de-risking this new project and engaging with, of course, our shareholders, our local stakeholders, creating a relationship with the government of Guatemala, and really introducing the Lundin Group to Guatemala, and what that means to have Bluestone backed by the brand of the Lundin Group and our approach to sustainable mining development. So we're now in a position where we know the project, we know the area, and we're looking to efficiently advance the project so that we can get into the development phase and ultimately into operations in 2024. And then in parallel, working to bring online the Mita geothermal project, which will generate, it's licensed to generate up to 50 megawatts of renewable energy. We'd probably start by targeting around half of that and look at selling into the grid so that we could offset some of our energy needs for running the mining operation. So, it's very unique for us, the fact that we have kind of a mining project and a renewable energy project right next to each other. And in the world of today, of course, we need to be focusing on minimizing our environmental impact and our carbon emissions. And Bluestone is kind of the only junior mining company out there that can do that with two projects adjacent to each other. So we're really excited about advancing both in parallel.
Yeah, and that's obviously part of the Lundin Group of companies. How do you pick, obviously, projects, and in terms of the jurisdictions that the group of companies are involved in? I think you mentioned that you probably go where other people may not want to go. Is there sort of a certain criteria that you look at when you're sort of assessing an asset?
Well, first, of course, the focus needs to be on the property itself, on the resource. So if there is a mineral or petroleum resource that has strong characteristics that would make generate positive cash flows, that has the economic opportunity to really put all of the resources and effort and financials into developing, that's criteria one. So we go where the resource is, right? And we're looking for world-class resources that can be developed at a later stage. So once that criteria is met, then the next thing is to really go in and understand what's making up the demographic of the area, what the host nation, their appetite is towards natural resources. If there are challenges, why are there challenges? And we look where the opportunities are, and we go and we introduce ourselves and we talk about the approach that we have. We really try and operate in as transparent as a way of as possible. And from there, if we believe that we can form a partnership with the host government, because that's what it needs to be. It needs to be, shared benefits and shared ownership. And I think from that standpoint, if you can develop a good working relationship with the local and national stakeholders and let them know what our intentions are and how we go about advancing projects, then if those two criteria can be met, then we go in and we really start focusing in on bringing in a team, advancing the project, looking at financing it, and then hopefully one day bringing it from one phase to the next. And so we keep it, it's actually quite a simple model. We don't try and overcomplicate things, but of course those are kind of the two major criteria that need to be satisfied before us being prepared to kind of go really all in on something.
Talking about yourself, coming from obviously a prominent family of mining professionals, or mining family, do you feel the extra pressure is placed upon you to sort of deliver based obviously on your history?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I feel extra pressure. I think I'm quite sensitized to the fact that what we're doing is for most individuals, it is high pressure, high stress. But because I've been born into this industry and I've been, really focused on becoming a leader in this industry, and it wasn't something that was forced upon me. I've just been naturally gravitating towards this because not everybody grows up with an opportunity to make such a meaningful impact in areas in the world that people don't even really know exist. And so for me, it was something that always attracted me. I was born with kind of that adventure spirit. And so I don't necessarily feel the pressure. I put pressure on myself to make sure that I'm doing the best job that I can. And I'm extremely fortunate to be able to have peers and family members that I've, grown up with and advanced my career with, so we can all lean on each other for advice and for support when times are tough. And I believe that we work really hard in the group, and so therefore we give it 100%, and that's really all that you can ask for, doing your best and keeping a positive mentality and knowing that if you work hard, then rewards will come from that. So I don't really feel the pressure. I put the pressure on myself.
What lessons sort of have you learned from obviously your Lundin peers, like you would like to share with us? And also, I suppose, other mentors that you may have within the industry that may be outside of the family, what sort of lessons have they gave you as well?
Well, my grandfather used to say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And this industry is really one that does have good times and bad times. It's a cyclical industry. Commodities, they go up, they go down. It's a very complex thing to build out a mine. A lot of different resources, a lot of different experience and expertise is required to go into building this out. And so for us, I mean, we really just try and focus on not getting too high on the highs and too low on the lows, and staying the course and really building our projects so that they can weather storms when commodity prices are low. We focus on maximizing the opportunities of the operations, and obviously other companies, when commodity prices are low, are struggling as well. So I think there's opportunities to buy in those markets. When commodity prices are high and most operations are making a lot of money and the margins are good, then we really want to focus on how we can minimize our operating costs so that we can weather the storm for when cycles go down again. So it's really just maintaining that balance and trying to really stay level-headed through all the ups and downs. I really think that the mentors in my life, and I'm very fortunate to say this, are my father, my uncle, and my grandfather. And then, the peers that I work with, some of the guys that are CEOs of the bigger companies within the group. I grew up kind of watching them and their management styles and learning from them and seeing kind of the amount of hard work that they put in. It makes me feel comfortable with making a lot of sacrifices to put a lot of hard work in to make our businesses successful. So it's just maintaining that balance and staying focused. And then I think the most important thing in anything is that you're working in an industry or in a job that you're happy, that you're passionate about. If you don't have that passion, then you're not going to be successful. If people are driven by purely just making money, they're not going to make money. I think creating value is a byproduct of doing something that you're passionate about doing. And I, again, feel very lucky that I'm in an industry that I'm passionate about.
Obviously, you mentioned your brothers. Just wondering if you can just give us a quick overview of your brothers, and also, is there competition between you guys in how you progress as I suppose progress your companies, or whether it's a little bit of an individual competitiveness between you?
Yeah, well, so addressing that second question first, I mean, we are extremely competitive and we are very driven, and it's definitely a brotherly rivalry, but in the sense that we always want to see each other do well. I mean, for us to be kind of gunning for a position that one brother may or may not have, I think that's never been the case, because we've got a vision to grow and expand. So I wish I had 10 brothers rather than just 3 that I could be in the business with, because we trust each other and we want to continue to grow and expand the business. But, you know, I'm very proud of all of my brothers. I have 2 older brothers. My oldest, Harry Lundin, so he's a fund manager that has a Broma Asset Management Fund operating out of Toronto, Canada, and he's focused on natural resource investments, but he's kind of doing his own thing from that sense out of Toronto and doing extremely well. Then my next older brother, Adam Lundin, who is the president and CEO of Jose Maria Resources, which is a large-scale copper, gold, silver project in Argentina, and he's looking at advancing that. And you know, I work very closely with him. He works out of the same office here in Vancouver. And then my younger brother, William Lundin, who is the chief operating officer of International Petroleum Co. He works out of Geneva, Switzerland, and he's an engineer, but chief operations officer. So, you know, working really hard on the oil and gas side of the business. So we're all very close and we're all very keen to see each other succeed. And of course, the brother rivalry is always going strong. Growing up in a household with 4 boys, I definitely feel bad at times for what my mom had to deal with, especially when my dad was on the road all the time trying to grow the business. But we made it to where we are today, and we're going to continue looking at growing and expanding together.
Yeah. And what are your aspirations and sort of your highest accolade that you would like to sort of achieve in the mining industry?
That's a great question. So, I mean, I really love to build projects, because I see what benefits we can bring to communities that otherwise don't really have long-term job opportunities, and resources can bring that. If you focus on minimizing any type of social or environmental impact and maximizing opportunities for these local communities and these nations that have these resources, you really can make a meaningful impact on making people's lives better and creating longer term stability. Mining projects, they last for decades, and you know, with that, you can really maximize opportunities for thousands of people, and that's really what drives me. So I think continuing to grow and expand our business, but also I am quite passionate on creating awareness about the natural resource sector. I think the industry in previous decades has done a really bad job and focused on kind of operating under the radar and trying to avoid scrutiny, but we need to create awareness. People need to understand that natural resources are absolutely required to advance societies. And while there is an impact, we can work on minimizing those impacts, and we can work on educating more people on what it means to advance these types of resources and build them and bring them to the world, because we're always going to be looking at developing and growing as the population grows. And so we need to do it in a responsible manner. So for me to continue to grow and build resources and build projects, create opportunities and create awareness, and try and just work on putting more of a positive spotlight on the natural resource sector, that's really what drives me. Just creating economic opportunities around the world, I'm very passionate about, and I hope I can continue to do for my entire life.
I've got a couple more questions. What's the outlook over the next sort of 12 to 18 months for Bluestone Resources?
So over the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to be looking at several things. We're going to be releasing our feasibility study, which means we'll have the blueprint for our development on the Cerro Blanco project. That will also be used for getting our project financing ready. As I mentioned, we have submitted our permit amendment application to reflect the surface mining, so the surface mining approach, and we hope to achieve that or get approvals on that in the midpoint of next year. And then we hope to quickly advance from kind of this late stage study phase that we're in to pre-development activities towards the end of next year. And then we go into full swing construction in 2023. And then by the end of 2024, we'll be into operations. So really, for the next 12 to 18 months, it's advancing from where we're at today in through early development into full swing development phase. And then just beyond that 18 months, about 24 to 30 months from now, getting ourselves into the commercial operations of Cerro Blanco. And then in parallel, advancing once we've got ourselves into the development phase, advancing with the Mita geothermal project in parallel.
And lastly, obviously you mentioned the Lundin Group of companies have been around for 50 years. What's the next 50 years going to look like for the company? And I suppose what's the vision for, I don't know, I suppose as you and your brothers are the sort of next generation, what's the next sort of, where will Lundin Group of companies be within, say, the next 50 years as an outlook?
Good question. So I think the world is changing at a faster pace than it ever has. I think we're going to see a transition away from oil and gas to more of a renewable energy focus. Of course, that's going to take some time to transition away from, petrol combustion engines for transportation. However, we're seeing that now with all of the electrical vehicles that are being manufactured and sold, and I think over time we'll see a lot more EVs on the road than classic combustion engine vehicles today. So we have to be prepared for that energy transition. So we'll likely look at diversifying away from oil and gas within the next kind of 5 to 10 years, but always focusing on natural resources in terms of both base metals, precious metals, and other forms of energy and renewable energy. So I think natural resources will always be our key focus. But then looking beyond that, of course, diversifying from not just the resource sector, but I think there's opportunities in urban development and real estate, and also with technology and advanced technology. I think we've seen now that we have started a tech fund that's operating out of Stockholm. And we're looking at making investments in companies, whether it be fintech or EV companies or just cutting edge technology companies. I think it's prudent for us to look at also diversifying our holdings to make sure that we're taking advantage of new trends out there and ways to create wealth. So focus on natural resources with a little bit more attention being given to diversifying as well our wealth.
Jack, really appreciate your time. I know you've been pretty busy recently, but I really appreciate your time taking the time to do this podcast. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions about Bluestone Resources, how can they go about that? And are you across any social media platforms?
Absolutely. So if you go to our corporate website, bluestoneresources.ca, you'll have a lot of information on our project, and you can reach out there. There's contact information for our Vice President of Corporate Development, Stephen Williams. My contact information is on there as well, and we'd be happy to answer any questions for potential shareholders or anybody that's looking to just get a little bit more information on what we do and what our focus is and how we anticipate moving projects forward in a sustainable manner. So through that website, we also have the lundingroup.com website where you can get more information on all of the companies within the Lundin Group, and through there you get contact information for various individuals in the group to get more details as well. So we're online, and we have social media presence as well with Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. So we're not hard to find.
Yeah, thank you again, Jack. Really appreciate taking the time to do this and explain or telling our audience a little bit about the Lundin Group of companies. Obviously, you've got a strong history and a strong presence within the industry. And maybe I can get your brothers on the podcast one day, and hopefully, obviously, wish you well with Bluestone Resources, and obviously, may the legacy continue. Appreciate those that are listening on the podcast. Please keep sharing these episodes, and especially this one, obviously with a family that are renowned in the industry and have been in the industry for 50 years and are growing from obviously strength to strength. So appreciate if you can share this episode amongst friends, family, others within the industry. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, appreciate if you can like and share this episode so it goes further out into the internet universe. So Jack, thank you again, and until next time, happy mining.